Hey, welcome to the What on Earth Can We Do podcast, where we chat with environmental leaders from across Alberta to figure out what on earth we can do to take action against climate change and protect our environment. I'm your host, Bree, the Communications and Engagement Specialist at the Alberta Emerald Foundation. And today I'm chatting with Kelly Rogers from Ecoplast Solutions about how they're building houses out of plastic recycled bottles and what that means for the future of construction in a climate-resilient world. Let's get into it. Kelly, thanks so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Hi, Sabrina. Thanks for having me.
So let's start by sharing a bit about Ecoplast Solutions. Where did the idea to build houses from plastic recycled bottles come from?
So Ecoplast Solutions is a home builder, and we also manufacture the panels that we build with. So the whole idea around building homes out of composite structural insulated panels actually came from one of our business partners in Eastern Canada. So he's spent his whole previous career, I guess, building boats and in the marine industry. So they're out on the East Coast. They're very familiar with composites. They use them for many different things in the marine industry, including building boats, fishing vessels, and live wells in fishing vessels and things like that. So he's spent his whole life working with the composites, and he realized the strength of it. And essentially, we are just taking those structures, flipping them upside down on land and building homes out of them. So
maybe you answered it in your answer there, but why plastic bottles and not some other material? Does it have a type of property that makes it more resilient for use in building boats and homes?
It does, yeah. So a couple of reasons we use the product we do is it's 100% recycled plastic bottles that is made into our foam. So we're upcycling all of that plastic waste. And the other reason is the durability and the properties of specifically the plastic itself. It's called polyethylene terephthalate. So the properties of that foam is kind of part of our recipe, makes it very durable, very strong, very high strength to weight ratio, and very resilient to different elements of the weather and insulating properties.
You touched on a few things that I have questions about later, but maybe I'll back up just a little bit and talk about these panels themselves. So for the people listening, can you describe what these visually look like? Like, how are these put together? Like, walk us through that process.
Yeah. So essentially what it is, our buildings are manufactured with 100% PET from recycled bottles. So what that means is used recycled pop bottles are shredded up, melted down into little beads, and then they go through an extrusion process and they're blown into a closed cell foam. So we take sheets of foam, and it's a rigid foam, 6 inches thick, and we laminate those sheets on both sides with composite skins. So fiberglass skins on the outside of the foam, and that makes it rigid and structural. And then we design and engineer those custom panels into different sizes, shapes, and standing them up and putting them together like Lego, essentially, to build the shell of a home. So the exterior envelope of the home. So they kind of look, when we first make the panels, they kind of look like just green panels. You'd never really know that they're made from recycled plastic. And then they can be finished out. The exterior of the home and the interior of the home is finished out in different ways to give it different aesthetics.
So where are you getting these recycled plastic bottles from?
So they come from all over. They actually come from all over Canada. And then the manufacturing facility that makes the actual foam is in Ontario. So we get the foam from Ontario, and then we do everything else in-house here in Llyodminster.
You might have touched on it already, but again, I'll ask, what sets this building technology apart from others? Like, how is this technology different than the standard way to build a home, the envelope of a home?
Well, it's kind of an all-in-one building system. So our structural insulated panels replace the structure, the insulation, the air barrier, the vapor barrier, all in one. So there's no studs in the walls. And that's where we eliminate thermal bridging of our homes, and that we can get into that a little bit more later too. That gets into the energy efficiency of the home. But they're extremely high strength to weight ratio. And they have a very high fatigue resistance. So they do not degrade. They're water resistant, and they do not rot, and they do not sustain mold. So kind of when it comes to degrading over time and losing your insulation value, those properties are some of the big benefits of our panels.
Wow, that's super cool. I'm like thinking of, I've never built a house, but I've seen houses built around me in my neighborhood, and thinking about how there's so many different aspects that go into building a home, at least from my perspective. And so hearing that there's kind of this all-in-one solution, like, does that reduce the amount of time it takes to build a home?
Absolutely, yes. So it's a lot of prefab, pre-planning. The windows and doors are all cut out at our facility here, but that's all designed and engineered. But we are like reducing a ton of the time on site and a ton of waste that goes into making the walls and the roof panels, because everything is so planned out beforehand. So we're reducing on-site time, but substantially. We'll build the whole shell of a home. Just for example, I'll call it a 1,500 square foot home, 1 or 2 story. We could have the shell of it up in 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow. Oh, I thought when you said 2 or 3, I was like, oh, he's going to say like 2 or 3 weeks or months. But wow, that's incredible. That's super cool.
Yeah. We'll truck the panels out on a truck and stand them up with a crane or a zoom boom, some type of lift. And we'll have all the walls stood generally day 1. And then the roof usually gets put on day 2. And then from there, we're seaming and sealing it up. So.
Wow. That's super cool. And you chatted about reducing waste, not just time on site, but also waste. And that goes really nicely into my next question of, how does your green building technology, how is it contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promoting a more sustainable future? How is it benefiting the environment?
So one of the big things is we're utilizing 100% recycled plastic. So we kind of hit this from a couple angles. We're reducing plastic from our landfills and oceans. And so we're reducing our environmental impact on that end, just creating value from waste. But we're also, in using the recycled PET plastic, it actually, in the production of the foam, creates less CO2 as well. So, 37% less CO2 than virgin PET, and 50% less than expanded polystyrene. And I think it's 53% less than rigid polyurethane foam. So the process itself uses less energy, and the end product, the foam itself, has very high insulation value. So the R value of our homes are an effective R30. And because we have no studs in the walls, we're eliminating the thermal bridging. That the amount of heat and cooling that is required to heat and cool the home is substantially less. And we're getting more and more testing done on that. That's showing we're going to be about 1.8, almost 2 times more energy efficient than a to-code stick-built home.
Oh, wow. That goes into another question. Like, maybe I'll build off of that, chatting about the energy efficiency of homes. Like, what can someone who lives in a home built with Ecoplast's green building technology, those panels that you have, what can they expect in terms of energy consumption?
They can expect substantially lower energy bills. The other thing that comes with the R value of our panel system is how it's put together. So the way that we put our panels together and seal them completely to the foundation, and every wall, every joint, the roof is all completely sealed. So it's all essentially bonded together with our process. So the other thing when you're testing for building efficiencies is the air tightness of a home. And your typical house might be anywhere, I think the average is about 3 air changes per hour. And our home was tested and it came in at 0.54 air changes per hour. So extremely airtight. So it's another, you're not losing your heat through air infiltration and air losses. So we come in at passive house qualified ratings for air changes per hour, basically without even trying.
And so you talked about the R value of the homes or the panels being R30. Do you know average R value of the typical Canadian home? Maybe, I live in a 1940s home. Obviously, that has probably a much lower R value, but do you know like the average R value of the Canadian home?
So we deal with effective R values, and industry is starting to move that way to understand the effective, like the total energy value of a building envelope. Building code is, for example, if you have an R24 wall with batt insulation and stick frame, by the time you take all your losses due to thermal bridging and your air leakages, that oftentimes is only effective R17. So there's nominal values and then there's effective values. And when we do it, we're talking effective values. But a lot of the older homes are just rated in nominal values, which isn't the same. So we're not really comparing apples to apples, but the proof is in the pudding with the testing of the home, that, it takes half the heat to heat these homes.
So we chatted about energy efficiency of the homes built with these panels. Can you talk about the ability to withstand severe weather events? As climate change is increasing and becoming more severe, we're having more extreme weather events. How would a home built with Ecoplast panels hold up to something like that?
Yeah, so our panels have actually been third-party tested to withstand the equivalent of 326 mile per hour winds. So that's equivalent to a double Cat 5 hurricane. So with this test, they take one of our panels and they put it in a wind chamber, and they put force on the wall and they try to break it. They could not give us final values on what it would take to break the wall panel. So we maxed the machine out, and it was the first panel that was ever hand loaded into the machine that could do that. So, comparable strength values. The only other thing that they had seen that did that to their machine was concrete.
Wow.
So that the strength of it, back to the marine industry and how this technology has been tested, these ships that are made out of this similar technology withstand the ocean, going up and down 20-foot seas, getting smashed around the kinetic energy of the ocean. So basically what the conclusion was of the testing is that there's been no wind on Earth that is going to break these panels.
That's so cool that you can brag about being the only thing other than concrete to kind of break this system. That's incredible, and that really goes to show the strength and durability of this building material and what it would be like. And in Alberta, we don't really experience that crazy of winds, no hurricanes or anything like that. But good to know that they're strong and resilient.
Yeah, absolutely, and it comes into play on our homes with our roof panels, because our roof system is made out of our panels as well. So we don't use conventional truss roofs. So we build a more of a flat or a monopitch roof, and it can easily withstand the snow loads. And that's something that we would deal with more so in Alberta in our cold winters. So it's all engineered. All of our builds are engineered, but we're really overkill, I should say, on what they're rated for with what we're going to see for weather events here.
So how many houses has Ecoplast built with these panels so far?
So in the Western Canada, we're at around 15 homes, somewhere between 15 and 20. Sorry. And our partners out east have done about the same out there. So.
And I didn't ask us at the beginning, but when was Ecoplast founded? Like, how long have you been doing this work for?
Yeah, we're pretty new. We actually started this up right in the middle of COVID. So in 2020, it kind of all came together. I was exiting a previous business, as was my business partner here, who was the connection between us and our partners out in Eastern Canada. So we kind of all came together at that time, and and decided to start up Ecoplast and cover Western Canada, which we have our builder's license in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia.
That's in 3 years to have built, like, between the two sides of the country, 30 houses. That's pretty incredible. And, considering you just started.
That's right. I mean, starting up a business in COVID is something of its own, especially when you're trying to get testing done. All the labs were closed. It's kind of been a nightmare that way. Mm-hmm. But we started up and we actually just started building ice fishing shacks and smaller buildings because nobody could go anywhere. A lot of people were sticking around home and ice fishing and stuff. So we started using the insulated panels to build those, and then quickly realized that housing is where the real value is, with the 6-inch panels and where our costs come in. And yeah, it really makes sense for housing above all else. Absolutely.
And speaking of using the panels for housing, we might have chatted about it earlier, but how does the technology that you use with the panels compare in terms of durability, maintenance, and long-term environmental impact to a home that's built using traditional practices?
Well, the life expectancy of the product is we can only estimate, because plastic hasn't been around as long as it's going to last. So, we can estimate 250 years life expectancy on these panels. And then they're recyclable at the end of life as well. So the full life cycle assessment of the foam is really important too. We're upcycling plastic waste. We're using it for the insulation and structure of our homes, and they are recyclable again at the end of life. So we just don't know how long that will be, because they don't rot, they don't mold, and they don't degrade. So as long as we keep the UV off them, which can be just paint or cladding or siding, stucco, any of those exterior options, then we know it's going to last a really, really long time.
That's kind of like a good thing, I guess, to be like, we don't really know. Like, these are probably going to outlive us, so we're not sure exactly how long they're going to last for. I think that's an interesting, unique problem to have, which is, good for the end user.
Yeah, they will definitely outlive us.
So where do you see Ecoplast going in the future when it comes to innovation and the environment?
We've got some pretty big goals at Ecoplast, where we want to take on the housing market full steam, where we've got a fairly aggressive approach to it, but we see the scalability of our system and our product to be really big. I mean, right now it may seem like we're just a little startup company, but we've already used over 9 million recycled plastic bottles, just in the 3 short years, and really only 2 years of building homes with what we're doing. So our trajectory is headed in the right direction. And I think with the amount of houses that are needed and the amount of, access to safe, comfortable, affordable housing, the effect that we have is really, I don't know, the sky's the limit for us, I guess. So
absolutely. I see this fitting so well in with not to get into the weeds too much, but it takes 2 to 3 days to build the building envelope here. And, Canada needs a lot more homes in the next however many years. And this seems like a really fantastic solution to help us get there. So where can people learn more about Ecoplast Solutions and connect with you to maybe start building a home of their own, or just learn more about your business?
The best way is through our website, www.ecoplast-solutions.com. So through there, there's lots of different videos. There's lots of information on the panels, the product. And if you go through the contact us page on there, we'll send you additional videos that includes kind of informative videos on the technology and things like that. And then we can look at design or an idea for a project that you may have and take it from there. We have in-house designers here, and myself and my team here will look at kind of what you have in mind for a project and see if we can help. So
Well, Kelly, this has been such an informative and interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you'd like to learn more, check out the resources in the show notes. The What on Earth Can We Do podcast is a program of the Alberta Emerald Foundation, a registered charity that showcases, inspires, and empowers Alberta's environmental achievements. To learn more about the Alberta Emerald Foundation, head to our website, emeraldfoundation.ca, or follow us on social media at Alberta Emerald. A big thank you to our sponsors, Capital Power, Syncrude, the Government of Alberta, the City of Edmonton, and Alberta Beverage Container Recycling Corporation. See you next time.